Hello, good evening, and thanks for being with us. I'm Blake Burman. Tonight, the new Trump travel. News Nation now learning the president's set to hit the road for a cross-country tour. What the White House is telling us about his plans. Plus, back to normal? The shutdown is over, but the future of air travel still very much up in the air. Why the administration is now offering $10,000 bonuses. Also tonight, did you see this? One giant launch forward. And that was just the start. Wait until you see the finish. Jeff Bezos now closing the gap with Elon Musk on the mission to get to Mars. And could the skies light up elsewhere? The post that just came moments ago from the Secretary of War as he announces Operation Southern Spear. What could happen next, potentially, with Venezuela? But first tonight, the sales pitch. News Nation learning that President Trump will be hitting the road, traveling across the country to talk about affordability. Perhaps a learning lesson for Republicans following last week's elections. That reveal, of course, coming just hours after a late-night signing in the Oval Office to end the government shutdown.
So I just want to tell the American people, you should not forget this. When we come up to midterms and other things, don't forget what they've done to our country.
But back to what we could be seeing out of the president. Maybe a new move from him. The cross-country travel to try to tackle an issue that plagued the previous administration as well. We'll hear from the Trump administration in just a moment on what they will try to tell the American public. But first to our Kelly Meyer on what she is learning over at 1600 tonight. Kelly?
Yeah, hey there, Blake. A White House official telling me tonight there are no concrete plans just yet, but the president will likely hit the road early next year. No word on what stops, but the official tells me that was the plan all along before, ahead of the midterms next year, but before these elections. But coming on the heels of those election losses, his economic pitch is taking on a whole new meaning, especially with folks still feeling that pinch. We pressed the president's top economic advisor on how different this tour is from the one President Biden did with his Bidenomics message. Listen to this.
Trumponomics works and Bidenomics doesn't. And so we've got lots of good news to report to the American people. And I think that people also could just look at their wallets and see that real incomes this year have already gone up by $1,200. President Trump, for sure, is going to go out there and deliver the message. But in the end, the most important message is going to be what people see in their pockets.
So Hassett did say that they still have work to do on getting the message across to Americans, but a White House official tells me Americans are already better off than they were under Biden, with lower inflation now than when Trump took office, though it is still around 3%. And though we don't have the latest numbers because of the shutdown, all food, not just groceries, they're outpacing overall inflation right now. Blake.
Our Kelly Meyer live tonight over at the White House. Kelly, thank you. So President Trump's upcoming economic tour, whatever that may look like in whatever shape or form, comes nearly 5 months, at least as of this evening, after he signed the One Big Beautiful Bill into law. Consider this for a moment. It is a departure from his previous administration. You can even go back to what Barack Obama did as well to look at both sides of the aisle, both using road trips to show off their signature achievements. For President Obama, it was the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, of course, as you know. Shortly after he signed the legislation in 2010, these are the stops that he made before and after, sales pitch before and after of his landmark health care plan. And then you can go to President Trump. The first term did something similar when Congress was taking up tax cuts. He traveled from Indiana to Missouri, pushing the bill, keeping up the roadshow, as you see here, some of the stops. After it was signed into law, he was back out on the road as well in 2018. But we're seeing a little bit of a different strategy from the White House this time around. The One Big Beautiful Bill that was signed into law on July 4th. But this summer, the president wasn't the one hitting the road. Instead, it was the vice president, J.D. Vance, crisscrossing the country, stops here to support the bill, to bring it up, to tout it, to say, here's what we passed, here's why we think it will benefit you. So what about that shift? Joining me now, Joe Lavorgna, counselor to the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, with us tonight here on the Hill. Joe, thanks for being with us. First time on the show, I believe, so we appreciate it. When the president gets out on the road, what's the message going to be? What should we expect to hear from him on the economy and on affordability?
You mentioned the One Big Beautiful Bill, which really is a sizable tax cut for middle and low-income Americans, and they are going to experience significant, potentially upwards of $200 billion in tax refunds, 7/10 of GDP. It's a significant number because of the no tax on tips and no tax on overtime, that they're going to benefit from that. And what that will certainly do is improve after-tax income. At the same time, the bill encourages significant capital investment, both in factories, which includes full expensing, which has never happened before, and then a full expensing of all the equipment that goes into those factories. That will lift nominal wages. At the same time, illegal immigrants have left the country, thanks to President Trump. That will put downward pressure on rents. Rents are collapsing at a very rapid rate. That will improve housing costs for that cohort. As inflation comes down, interest rates will fall. Mortgage rates last week were at a 52-week low. That lifts affordability. So President Trump is going to highlight all these key factors that are going to lift living standards for everyday Americans.
So I hear you on that, and that's obviously the policy, and you tout it, and that's what administrations do. But, I mean, we also know the reality for Americans. Let's just go to food prices. Up 18% over the last 3 years, 37% the last 5 years. I know that the president wasn't in office then, but look at grocery prices now. They continue to climb. Coffee up 30%, ground beef 14%, bananas up 8%, just to name a few. So I hear you on the policy, Joe. I get it. I hear it. I know what's in it.
Yes, but there's
how do you then tell people, okay, things are going to be fine. You should feel okay?
We have to remember, President Trump, in his first term, he delivered on historic increases in real median family income, nearly 6,500, 7,000 over the 3 years prior to COVID. So he's already done it before, and he improved it in the bill. The factors that you highlight are certainly of concern. But President Trump's policies are supply side, increasing the productive capacity of the economy to generate the goods and services that people want and need. So as that build occurs, because the IRS is still finishing its guidelines on the building of factories, but that increases the economy's productive capacity, and what you will have is a CapEx investment-led disinflationary boom on a bigger scale than what took place the first time. And things on the refunds, by the way, let me just add, those refunds could be $200 billion. Those are private sector estimates and official estimates. So these are numbers that are quite sizable and are coming. Those are going to hit people's pocketbooks early in the new year.
We hear, though, from people, right, that they just don't feel it. I mean, there was a NewsNation poll a couple weeks ago, Joe, about have you made a financial sacrifice in the last year? 51% of Republicans said yes. And I hear the president talking about this idea of affordability as a con job from the Democrats. Do you believe it's a real issue, or do you believe it's a con job?
Well, it's hurt because in the sense that Democrats shut the government down. It was about $87 billion, nearly $90 billion of what economists would call deadweight loss, output that we're not getting back. And without that information, the Fed is debating whether it should be cutting interest rates in December, which if they don't would be a policy mistake based on the Fed's own analysis. The president needs to get out and market his bill because it's got so many great things that are coming, and that's why he pushed that bill to get done on July 4th when many people didn't expect it. So we understand the pain of people. That's why we wanted the government open in the first place, but couldn't because the Democrats held it hostage. But these economic plans, because they were tried before, well, of course not. No, how do you increase affordability? You expand the productive capacity of the economy, which is what's happening on energy. Energy costs, gasoline in particular, is at a 4-year low. Grocery prices, we're trying to make amends to fix what Biden had done under his administration. But as the economy expands and grows and worker wages rise through productivity-enhancing capital investment, which was the hallmark of the first Trump presidency, people are going to, rightly so, feel wealthier, have more money in their pockets, and that's going to go a long way to fixing the affordability crisis that we inherited.
Let me leave you with this. The idea, we've seen several ideas floated this week about how to deal with affordability. One of them is a 50-year mortgage. The Wall Street Journal editorial board calls that a bad idea. Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff, a NewsNation contributor, told me on this show he feels the same, that it won't lead to lower affordability. Does the Treasury Department, Joe, believe that a 50-year mortgage is a good idea?
The Treasury Department is looking at all sorts of factors. That was one proposal. The feedback has been such that probably, and it did not come from Treasury, but probably not an optimal approach. But we're looking at everything we possibly can do. And on the supply side, trying to change the permitting, seeing if we could do things to lower closing costs. Again, interest rates are high. Monetary policy is restrictive. That's the purview of the Fed. But again, we're trying to come up with everything possible to help working class Americans, of which the One Big Beautiful Bill certainly is a key cornerstone to. And if we can do other things, such as lowering the price of coffee and bananas and all sorts of things that the Secretary mentioned, we're going to pursue every option we possibly can. Every little bit will help.
Joe Lavorna, counselor to the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, with us tonight. Thank you, sir. Hope you come on back.
I hope so, too. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Meantime, on to the shutdown now. Now over, of course, but the hemp industry looking for a path forward as the government reopens. As you heard from us on this show last night, we were one of the first folks to talk about it. The funding bill includes a provision to effectively ban THC hemp products. Hemp farmers, say, like Stacey McCaskill, laid out what this could mean for the almost $30 billion industry. Are you going to go out of business?
Absolutely. You said that it could destroy the hemp industry. It will absolutely destroy the hemp industry.
Our Hannah Doba with us tonight. Hannah, what you hearing now that this has made its way out into the mainstream?
Blake, first I want to say you and your team are the first ones that brought this up, and a lot of people are talking about it. This has national implications, even if you've never taken a hemp gummy. This is a major pivot point for the hemp business. When the law takes effect, most of the hemp-derived THC products on shelves every day, this is your wellness store, a gas station, it would become illegal under federal law. Let's get in the weeds here. I hope you enjoy that pun. Trade groups and hemp businesses are launching a full-court lobbying push in Washington. Their goal is to convince Congress to replace this hard cutoff with real regulatory framework. Things like age limits, testing, packaging rules, clear labeling, instead of eliminating every single THC product altogether. There are states, and these are heartland states. We're talking about Minnesota, for example, where breweries are built whole product lines around THC. Many owners and farmers, and you report on this a lot, farmers are struggling. And they're saying the federal change would wipe out the industry unless lawmakers revisit this rule. Many states also have to rewrite their own hemp laws to match this new federal definition. Now, the law takes effect in November of 2026, a year from now. So the industry has exactly a year grace period. But after that, the question now is whether Congress opens the door to a new regulatory system or lets this ban go into effect as written. If you think about it, Blake, a lot of attorneys are already arguing right now this crop is legal, but for many farmers next year, they could be charged with a felony.
In the One Big Beautiful Bill, there were the poker players who felt that they got targeted with the new tax laws for them. And after that, there was sort of bipartisan consensus to say, OK, maybe let's fix this. We'll see if that happens with this going forward as well. Hannah Doba, live with us tonight. Hannah, thank you. Still to come tonight, the government shutdown over, but trouble remains in the skies as staffing in air traffic control towers still falls short. How the shutdown just may have caused irreparable damage. Plus, after a string of deadly crashes involving illegal truck drivers, California, did they just cave to the Trump administration? What's now happening in that state on the roads? And small town, big business. A tiny town in Alabama, 5,000 residents, now becoming a hot spot for jobs. We'll tell you where it is and what's happening there. Brian Enton later in the show. We're back on the other side, 4 minutes away. I'm Blake Burman. See you then. So the shutdown is over and airports are hoping to get back to normal operations soon, but right now things are still pretty grim out there. 636 delays today, 135 cancellations. And remember, this is all hitting on top of an air traffic controller shortage that was already hurting the system before the government shut down. The air traffic controllers are still working double shifts in many cases, running on fumes. Many picked up second jobs to survive the last 43 days without pay. So even with the shutdown over, the ripple effects could continue. With me now, retired air traffic controller David Riley with us tonight. David, thanks for being here. I think there's so many folks, millions all across the country, who are like, okay, the shutdown's over. That was insane. I can't believe our politicians did that, but it happened. I see what's going on at the airports. When does it get back to normal? What does your experience tell you?
Yeah, good evening. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's gonna have a ripple effect for quite some time. We'll see exactly how it plays out on this particular shutdown, knowing that it's not the first time that this has happened. I was working as an active controller during the last shutdown in 18 and 19, and it takes some time for things to kind of work its way out. It's not just a matter of getting people back to work and getting them paid in this particular situation for the work that they've already done, but it's going to take some time for sure.
Let me make you guess here for a second. It's a Thursday evening. By next Wednesday, are we back to normal?
I'm not even going to guess because it's your guess as good as mine what's going to happen between now and then. But
fair enough.
Things are going to have to work themselves out. And as you mentioned, the already overworked and underpaid controller workforce is taking a toll on them.
In the middle, in the middle of all this, we had our NewsNation town hall, and there was a moment that went viral. An air traffic controller who revealed this. I want to play it again real quick, and then we'll take it up on the other side.
My question is, under the current political climate, do you think that this shutdown could actually be longer than the previous shutdowns due to the external pressures, political pressures that we're having effect right now? Because I am actually driving DoorDash when I get off work just to kind of make sure I can pay for my daughter's tuition.
And we heard so many stories like that, especially as this kept on going. What are you hearing in your world from air traffic controllers? Is there any second guessing of, do I want to come back? Should I come back? Maybe is it time to look for something else? Or none of that? I don't know. What are you hearing?
Well, absolutely. I think controllers have been distracted with that exact question for the entire time of the shutdown. I mean, they've already been working excessive amounts of overtime since the pandemic. And then they go into the shutdown, adding insult to injury, not getting paid, and being forced to work. So I'm sure a lot of controllers that aren't very vested in the career at this point are looking at it going, oh, maybe the instability of working for this employer is not worth it. I know personally that there's several controllers that have resigned and gone to Australia to work air traffic over there to take some of the skills they've gained here and go to maybe a little stable situation where they're more appreciated. So it's definitely on our minds, and it creates a huge distraction when they're working traffic up in the tower cap.
This $10,000 bonus for the folks who stayed on the job, didn't call out sick. I'm sure they appreciate it and want it and could take it at any moment now. Does that move the needle, though?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's even yet to be seen. I mean, to quote the president, I think he said he's recommending. So where that shakes out is yet to be seen. But also, I mean, how are they going to classify that? I mean, did you take an hour off at the end of the shift because you had to go to a doctor's appointment, but now you're not going to get the $10,000?
Right. Yeah, I thought about that too. Yeah.
Think about it that way.
David Riley, wish you all the best. Thanks for being with us here tonight, sir. Thank you. Still come. Other side, from safety in the skies to safety on the road. How California now is putting the brakes on truckers after a string of deadly accidents across America. Plus, our Brian Enton joining us in minutes live from, is it Bruton, Alabama? Is that where you are tonight, Brian?
Yeah, that's right. Bruton, Alabama, Blake. Probably a spot many people haven't heard of, but it's an awesome town. I've been here for 2 days. There's so much to do, and there's new jobs. A small rural town with tech jobs. Something you might not have expected. I'm gonna explain it, Blake.
Brian in Bruton, what he's seeing there, other side of the break. Stay with us. All right, just about 6:30 on the dot here on the East Coast. We are not expecting to get a full picture of the October jobs report due to the government shutdown. Today as well, there should have been a reading on inflation. Not going to get that either, but we do know this. In recent months, there's been a noticeable cool down of jobs added to the economy. One company, however, is finding massive success with its strategy, going all in on rural America. And that's where we find our Brian Enton tonight, down in Bruton, Alabama, with what he's seeing there. Hello, Brian.
Hey, Blake. Yeah, this is very cool because, there's so much bad news, it feels like, in some of these small towns across America, rural America. We report on the jobs leaving and the manufacturing leaving. But this is literally the opposite. This is a company, the name of it is Provalis, and they are specifically moving into rural America, to towns just like this one where I am in Alabama, towns with about 5,000 or so people. And they move these tech hubs into these towns. These are jobs that in the past were typically outsourced to places like India and the Philippines. But instead of having the jobs outsourced, they bring them to rural America and they hire the people who actually live in these towns, who don't necessarily have the skills, but they train them. I met one of the ladies who got a job here in Bruton. She was actually a farmer, and now she works for a tech company. Listen to what she told me. Are people relieved when you answer the phone and they hear that, American accent?
Yeah, I would say so. And again, it's because I feel like they feel like we're relatable. To them, we're just everyday people that they pass by in the street that are trying to help them get what they need.
And what's cool is, you call some of these customer service numbers and you get people overseas that you can't understand that well, Blake. I mean, we've all been there. It sounds like they're reading a script. These are people in rural America. These are Americans who you can understand, and they've also kind of got that small town friendly vibe to them, which really seems to work out well, Blake.
And how did they? So it's a small town, 5,000 folks, right? Are they all from that? Are they all from that area? Is it, do you have others driving 30, 45 minutes, whatever it may be, like in other parts of the country, or how'd they staff up so quick?
Yeah, and they do staff up quick, by the way. It's about a 30-day training period in some instances. And they hire for attitude, not skills, so you don't have to have any tech skills, and they'll train you. But yeah, people drive an hour in, 30 minutes in, because they need the jobs. I met another woman who was working at Walmart, and you're going to see her coming up later in Vargas's show, but working at Walmart, doing oil changes, changing tires, and now she works for a tech company, has benefits, makes good money, and actually is a boss now. So the opportunities are really amazing.
2025, right? It's kind of the world we live in. Our Brian Enton, live for us tonight. Great state of Alabama. It's always nice to be down there. Brian, thank you. Still to come, President Trump hitting the road soon to talk about affordability.
The biggest ever passed in the history of our country. I call it the great, big, beautiful bill.
So will the president's message resonate with voters, or is it too little, too late? And within the past moments here, the Secretary of War announcing what he is calling Operation Southern Spear as the number of drug boat strikes rise once again. What is this? What is this announcement from the Secretary of War? Is something coming between the U.S. and Venezuela, or is it just a name for what you see on the screen? When we return. All right, it feels like we have a little bit of movement here. There are reports tonight that President Trump is being presented with options for a potential attack on Venezuela, potentially within a matter of days. That report coming as just over an hour ago, the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, posting in part with the president's orders, quote, "Today I am announcing Operation Southern Spear." He says this mission defends our homeland, removes narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, and secures our homeland from the drugs that are killing our people. The Western Hemisphere is America's neighborhood, and we will protect it. That from the Secretary of War this evening. Full panel here with me now. Jasmine Wright is the White House correspondent for Notice, the digital news outlet. Linda Tran, former senior advisor to the Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, and Bill McGinley, former cabinet secretary in the first Trump administration. Hello to you all. Thanks for being in. Trump world, Bill. There's this report that they met, in the Situation Room or met in the White House and presented the president with options. Then we get that post from the Secretary of War. The USS Gerald R. Ford, the largest strike group that the world knows, in the Caribbean now. What do you think is happening here?
I think the Trump administration is probably trying to muscle up its Western Hemisphere policy. I think what we've seen is a lot of neglect from America over the years, whether it was the Panama Canal. We saw the Chinese come in and basically take over. Trump's trying to correct that. You also have Venezuela and some of the other states that are narco states where the cartels are controlling it. In Biden, on 2 years, over 100,000 Americans died from illegal drug overdoses. Recently, it's been 80,000. I think the United States is looking at the Western Hemisphere, the narco-controlled states, and saying no more. Al-Qaeda was not a state that attacked America where 3,000 plus Americans were tragically killed. If we're losing over 80,000 a year, even after you've brought it down, that is a crisis in America, and the president's going to act to protect America.
You say bulking up. Do we move all those assets there? I mean, because they're droning these boats. You don't need all those resources to drone the boats.
I think it's sending a message. You know, the thing to remember about the military is that it gives meaning to the words the diplomats say. So if you want to send a strong message to a narco state, if you want to send a strong message to the states that are harboring these transnational criminal organizations, you park a carrier off the coast.
Well, the problem with all of this, of course, is that it's not without controversy. There is a lot of concern that we are actually violating international law by striking these ships, as these are extrajudicial killings that are happening. And this has been such a controversy, both on the outside and on the inside, that just a few days ago, we heard that the UK is no longer sharing intel. Our closest ally doesn't want to share intel.
I think Rubio shot that. The Secretary of State shot that.
There's discussion of these sorts of issues. And we also know that the head of Southern Command is stepping down at the end of December because he raised issues within the room with all of these leaders about his concerns about the legality of it.
By the way, speaking of the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, here's what he said the other day as it relates to criticisms of shooting down these boats.
I do find it interesting that all these countries want us to send, and supply, for example, nuclear-capable Tomahawk missiles to defend Europe. But when the United States positions aircraft carriers in our hemisphere where we live, somehow that's a problem.
He didn't seem too concerned there about the legality of it. You're at the White House every single day. What's the sense that you get?
Yeah, I think the White House believes that they are on strong footing, that they have the legal ability to do what they have done so far. I think a part of the reason why you perhaps may not have seen them do more is because the question of whether or not they actually have the legal ability to do so. When I ask people at the White House whether or not they are going to do land strikes, whether or not this is going to lead to a regime change in Venezuela, they don't answer those questions. They basically say that the president is keeping his options open, but what his focus on is now is taking out these boats. But of course, that is not just drawing a lot of controversy overseas, but also drawing a lot of controversy on Congress, that building behind us. We know that both Republicans and Democrats, over the course of the last month or so since this has been happening, have raised a lot of questions, have called repeatedly for more classified briefings. Obviously, that vote failed last week to basically stop Trump from striking some of these boats in the White House's favor. But these Republicans and, obviously Democrats, but some Republicans say they'll continue to kind of raise these questions because they feel like, one, they're not being brought up, they're not being brought in enough, and then two, they don't have enough information as to what exactly is happening.
By the way, when you talk about the USS Gerald R. Ford, it comes with the Super Hornet, the Growler, the Advanced Hawkeye, the Seahawk, the Greyhound, and 4,000 at least soldiers, just to give you a little scope of what's going on here. All right, then the other issue before the president. We talked about it at the top of the show. President Trump, NewsNation, learning that he's about to hit the road to talk about affordability. It's an issue that has snuck up, it seems, on this White House and on some Republicans up on Capitol Hill. Here's the president in August of 2024 and then again last week.
We will target everything from car affordability to housing affordability to insurance costs to supply chain issues. I will instruct my cabinet that I expect results within the first 100 days or much sooner than that. The reason I don't want to talk about affordability is because everybody knows that it's far less expensive under Trump than it was under Sleepy Joe Biden. Affordability, they call it, was a con job by the Democrats.
You were crushing her last year because she was trying to say everything's cool. And now she's going to crush you because you're going to say everything's cool, right? And like have the roles reversed a little bit?
I don't think so.
No.
I know you're shocked to hear that. 4 years of Biden economics has really damaged the country. Inflation is not something that is basically a water faucet that you can turn off. It's going to take time for these policies to come in and actually have the impact that the president wants them to have. They're making a lot of progress. I mean, within the first couple of days of his administration, everybody was complaining about egg prices, which was a hangover from the Biden administration. They worked to reduce that.
What do you want to hear him say? What do you want to hear the president say? Because he's already said it's a con job, but yet the White House is saying, hey, look, this is an issue we're going to talk about.
I think the White House has done a great job on the foreign policy. and trying to achieve peace and a lot of conflicts around the globe. I think what they're doing down in Central and South America, trying to take over the Western Hemisphere and make sure that it's free from the foreign influences that mean harm to America, great job. I think what we need to do is we need to pivot to the kitchen table issues that frankly got the president elected in 2024, because it's the forgotten men and women who, as we saw in that story about Alabama, they want the jobs, they want the income. The jobs are coming and a lot of people have jobs. The issue is the jobs that they have don't pay enough to satisfy the household obligations.
So yesterday the government opened and Democrats held a big press conference about affordability. No, they talked about Epstein, right? and I'm not saying that's not an issue. Obviously,
Sure.
The country wants to see the files. But I just wonder if your party has the discipline to just stay on this message and talk about it nonstop.
I mean, the president is not talking about affordability and his team right now by accident. We just are a few days out from a, by all accounts, blowout set of elections. In Virginia and New Jersey in particular, the margins were so wide, 15 points in Virginia, 14 points in New Jersey. And why is that? Because voters said affordability was their #1 issue. And it doesn't actually matter, in my opinion, if the president now decides he's going to go out on some sort of a tour and deploys everybody else, because the pain is real. Everywhere I go around the country, I'm a road warrior.
Yep.
There are long lines of people waiting at food banks. There are people who are worried about how they're going to pay the rent, how they're going to pay for their groceries, how they're going to pay for childcare. And, to Bill's point, these are things that have a long tail on them.
Right.
But it's not good optics that the president has been doing all these overseas trips rather than focusing on domestic.
Here was Peter Navarro speaking to Leland Vittert the other night.
We feel your pain. We are literally doing everything we can.
The president calls this a con job. How do the American people think he feels their pain when he says it's a con job?
At the political level, that's what's going on. They blame him for Biden's legacy.
Is that going to sell? How do you think they handle this going forward?
I'm not sure if that message sells. And to your point, when I talk to White House officials, they say there is no pivot. They say we've been talking about affordability for 10 months. That has been the president's focus. You've seen him take on drug prescription prices. You've seen him do all of these things to try to bring down the prices. But I think that they're running into the very real issue that administrations before them have run into, which is that you can tell people that the economy is good, but unless they feel it, they do not believe it. And so I'm not sure that that frame from Navarro works. It's funny because in July, I wrote the story that the White House's message on the economy is trust us. And the economy got better over the summer. And now I think people are feeling a little bit worse. And so the question is how do you translate to the American people that things are going to be okay? And something that the White House has said is that next year you're going to hear us talk about it because you're going to see the dividends for what Trump is doing now pay off. But people are struggling right now.
Jasmine, Linda, Counselor, thank you all. Appreciate it. Still to come here on the Hill other side, how California is putting the brakes on truckers after a string of deadly accidents across the country. And did you see this today? One giant step forward for Jeff Bezos in space. My take when we return. Well, the illegal immigrant accused of killing 3 people in Florida after making an illegal U-turn in a big rig back in court today. He now faces 3 counts of vehicular homicide. He illegally crossed the border in 2018, previously failed his commercial driver's license test 10 times. At the time of the crash, he had a license from California, the focus of the administration's crackdown. It's one of several deadly truck crashes across the country that are now raising questions about illegal immigrants behind the wheels of commercial trucks. California now revoking commercial driver's licenses from 17,000 drivers after an audit found that the licenses belong to immigrants no longer allowed to live in the U.S. It follows pressure from the Trump administration over this issue. The Transportation Secretary, Sean Duffy, saying that California was, quote, caught red-handed after weeks of claiming they did nothing wrong. He says now that we've exposed their lies, 17,000 illegally issued trucking licenses are being revoked. But the governor there, Gavin Newsom, at least the press office, firing back, saying once again, the Sean Road Rules Duffy fails to share the truth, spreading easily disproven falsehoods in a sad and desperate attempt to please his dear leader. So that's what we're getting out of that state tonight, both sides. Here now, the president and CEO of the American Trucking Association's Chris Spear. Chris, thanks for being with us. Who's got it right here?
Well, I got to tell you, I think this administration's doing everything right to police our roads and bridges. We've got to put the safest people behind the 80,000-pound vehicles that my members oversee. And I got to tell you, 17,000 commercial driver's licenses getting revoked, that's a big problem. And the fact that it coincided with the last 3 months when we've been dealing with multiple fatal accidents caused by drivers with California-issued CDLs, that is a big deal. That is not an overlap or a miscite by California. That is them going back and actually looking at their records and discovering, hey, maybe we shouldn't have issued all these to 17,000 people. Maybe they aren't qualified to be behind the wheel. It definitely coincides with the president and Secretary Duffy's initiative to enforce the law, and we support that wholeheartedly at the American Trucking Associations.
You want Congress to get involved as well. What do you want from them?
Well, we want stronger state safety standards. We want entry-level driver training rules that are enforced. We want every driver to be able to speak and read English. We want to make certain that all drivers are clean from alcohol and drugs, the basic fundamentals that should exist in all 50 states, partly because our industry is moving 72% of the domestic freight in the United States amongst all states. So it's not just California. When they issue 17,000 CDLs illegally, those drivers are moving all over the country. So it's everybody's problem, not just California. So we need to look at this from a holistic point of view. We need Congress to engage and lead on the matter.
You talk about freight. I just want to read you two headlines that I read today. One of them is this: October freight shipments plunge. Volume index logs the worst October since 2009. And then retailers expect container import decline to accelerate in 2026. It seems like that's a result of tariffs and what we're seeing with the economy. Are the policies coming out of the White House hurting your industry in that sense?
No, I don't think so. We anticipated the president.
Not at all. I mean, there's a there's a slowdown in the volume. So how's that not a correlation?
Yeah. Slowdown well preceded. We've been in 3 years of a freight recession, so this dates well back into the Biden administration. It's cyclical. Coming out of COVID, there's an uptick in terms of freight, and we look at it on a longer term. I don't think that that's an issue. This is more of an immediate problem. I don't think tariffs are directly responsible for that. No.
Chris Spear is the president, CEO of the American Trucking Associations, with us tonight here on the Hill. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Blake. Appreciate it.
All right. Of course. If you're just getting home tonight, trying to catch up on today's top stories, here is just some of what's trending this evening. First up, a judge appears wary of Lindsay Halligan's appointment as Letitia James, seek case dismissals. A federal judge is now promising a ruling over whether President Trump's hand-picked prosecutor was illegally appointed or not, which means charges against two of his political adversaries could be tossed entirely. That's if that's how it proceeds going forward. Also trending tonight, judge orders more than 300 ICE detainees released by next week. The detainees were all picked up during raids across the Chicago area during Operation Midway Blitz. The government could still appeal that ruling. The litigation continues there as it relates to immigration. And then finally tonight, there's this. Senator John Fetterman, Pennsylvania, suffers injuries from a fall. He's been hospitalized. Thankfully, we can tell you tonight, no damage to the senator's sense of humor. He released a statement that says the following, in part quote, "If you thought my face looked bad before, wait until you see it now. At least we can report he is in very good spirits." To check out those stories and more, all you have to do is head on over to thehill.com. There is that and so much more there. By the way, you see that QR code there on your screen? Scan it. Pick up the phone, scan it if you got a second. I write in the Hill's Morning Report. That's the morning newsletter every single day. You can get my take first thing in the morning when you wake up. All right, speaking of takes, time for mine as we end tonight. They say what goes up must come down. But that's not always a guarantee, especially in space. And it makes what we are witness today even more surreal. A remarkable scene in Cape Canaveral. What you're looking at there is the New Glenn rocket on its way to Mars, or at least some of the satellites there. It's only part of the wonder because the booster also returned to land on a barge in the ocean. Watch.
We've got our booster landing burn.
Engine control looks good. Standing back to touchdown. Touchdown confirmed.
Is that not wild or what? The New Glenn is the backbone of Blue Origin. That is the space company that is backed by Jeff Bezos, who can now proudly say to Elon Musk, your move. Now, whatever you think about these two, their accomplishments, no doubt about it, remain out of this world. On average, think of this, we are about 140 million miles away from Mars. But scenes like what we saw today make you wonder if we are actually much closer. Coming up on Elizabeth Vargas Reports, she'll be talking to the author of a new book about the makings of Luigi Mangione. It's a book that enraged Mangione's attorneys. That's just seconds away here on News Nation. I thank you so much for watching us tonight here on The Hill. I'm Blake Burman. I'll be back tomorrow. Elizabeth starts right now.